man takes care of his own business, and that is officially 100% clearly breaking up with the River Queen's daughter. So he meets her on the edge of the river, and he's like, I need to talk to you. And she's like, I've seen this day coming for literally a long time, because I'm not stupid. I just had hope that you would one day come back to me and like find me, whatever, but guess not. And then she continues to get angry, and after he's like, yeah, no, I'm done, sorry, hate to have led you on this long, but we're just two different people, I don't know. And so she's livid, and then she's like, we're going beneath, we'll see what my mother has to say about this. And he's like, well, I'm not going beneath, actually. And she just like dives in, and then he's like, oh my gosh, I have probably about 30 minutes before the River Queen comes after me and hauls my sorry fish butt down beneath, and then locks me there where I can never come above. And he's like, where can I possibly get in 30 minutes that's safe enough that she would not dare to drag me back? And he's like, unfortunately there's only one option for this, so here we go. Starts sprinting to the meat market, and he goes to none other than the stupid Viper Queen. And he's like, hey, I want to join your fighting pits. And she's like, I don't take freelancers. He's like, okay, well then just like, I'm selling myself to you. And she's like, you're gonna sell yourself into slavery, a free civitas, giving up your freedom for slavery? And he's like, yes. And you can feel the building shaking, and like the River Queen is coming, the power is building, you can feel it. And the Viper Queen's like, River Queen doesn't seem too happy. And he's just like, please. And she's like, okay, fine. So she does like Throne of Glass style blood oath type deal, cuts her hand, has him drink the blood. Tastes nasty because it's got like her venom crap mixed in. And so then he's like, okay, cool, also I need to go help my friends real quick, but then like I'll come back. And she's like, well, you should have specified that before you just gave me your freedom. And he's like, no, promise, if you give me this, I will come back and I'll do whatever you want. And she's like, okay, fine, you go do whatever it is, but then you have to come back right here. And he's like, aye. And the minute he signed this like little blood oath, essentially sold his soul away to the Viper Queen, building stopped shaking. Like the River Queen knew, and she was like, I ain't messing with the Viper Queen. So Therian also feels when she's like, leave, that he starts walking away, like not really of his own volition. He's like, uh-oh, what have I done? And then the further and further he walks away from the meat market, he can feel this invisible chain slowly tethering him to the Viper Queen. And he's like, maybe this wasn't like the best idea, but it was my only idea. And so now I just have to live with it, I guess. After that, Rune meets with Day once again. Obviously they kissed last time, and so he's like, that was pretty great. And she's like, whoa, we can't get close together, like I can't see you anymore. And he's like, nah, come on, you know you want to see me, I have to see you. And then she's like, can't really come up with any good excuses, and she's slowly like getting closer to him. She's also equally being like, no, we can't do this, it's dangerous, blah blah blah, all this stuff. Okay, she's like, you can't, if you're giving more ammo to our enemies, essentially. And then somehow, mentally, in their little mental forms, they get it on. All the while, she still has not let him see her face or know who she is. So she like takes the flames off, or like makes them visible everywhere except her face. So he can see her body, she can see all of him, but still, no face here. We do not know. They have their nice little soul entwining moment, and then afterward, he is like, hey, by the way, we're coming to your nick of the neighborhood. And she's like, what do you mean? What do you mean by that? And he's like, oh, we're gonna go into the archives, and we're coming to the Eternal City, to the Crystal Palace. And she's like, no, that's a terrible idea, don't do that. He's like, if you could give us any like intel on the layout, that would be great. She's like, absolutely not, that is a suicide mission, like what if it's a trap? And he's like, well, I mean, I don't know, like we're still gonna do it. And then the unfortunate thing is she starts breaking out, like someone is pulling her back to reality, or out of mental, I don't know, whatever this thing is. And it's the darn male who keeps waking her up, because this has happened multiple times before, but it's really unfortunate because it's in the middle of a really crucial conversation here. She's like, this could be a trap, phasing out, and then she says the dungeons, and then poof, gone. So Rune now, desperate, he's like, oh my gosh, I have to go save her. She's probably in the dungeons there. I need to go rescue her. So that's why he's like, Bryce, I'm coming with you. She's like, this would be better if I went by myself. And Hunt's like, too bad, I'm also coming with you, because you can't go without me. And she's like, well, okay, fine, but this is better with less people. So now there's 3 of them going. So then they devise a plan. The plan is that Therian and Cormac are gonna go together, and they're gonna go to these labs wherever they're making the mech suits there's like right outside the Eternal City, and then they're gonna simultaneously draw out the Asteri, but then also draw Ophion there. So then they like go at each other without knowing who really started this was them. So that's their plan. And then meanwhile, Rune and Bryce and Hunt will go into the archives, and then they're gonna go do their whole thing. So now they teleport in, and they teleport like right into a hallway, and Declan is like doing his magic with the cameras, and he's been slowly like moving them a little bit so that they won't pick up wherever they're hiding out. So they're hiding in Rune shadows, and they have like their timer set, all real secret mission like, and then Bryce teleports right behind the door that they're trying to figure out what's in there. She's on the staircase, she goes down the stairs to find like these like tablets next to these giant like pipe looking things, and they go straight up into the ceiling, and then there's like, she watches this like burst light zooms up into them, and then the tablets light up, and there's 7 of them, but the 7th one is just like not working. And then she sees that there's names for each one, and then she's going down the names, and there's like a percentage associated, so it's like Rigilus 65% power, and she's like, holy crap, this is what this is. The Asteri, because based on their map, she knows exactly where they're at. They're 7 levels below the throne room, like exactly below. And she's like, oh my gosh, the Asteri are literally feeding off of our first light and second light. They're literally charging like batteries on their thrones. This whole time that we thought that they're just sitting there, they're powering up. We're feeding them. And she's like, this is absolutely insane. I see now why this information was quite crucial. So as she's like, okay, I gotta go, she starts walking out, and she sees a door, and it's labeled Dusk, and she's like, Dusk Truth, let me see. So she's like, I have some time, going on a detour, goes into this door. And in there, she finds a giant orrery thing that's like a solar system or something, I don't know. Basically like a planet thingy that she used to see one. She has seen one before in the Autumn King's office the one time she went in there, but this is obviously a much bigger scale. There's also one in the astronomer's office, but again, this is like, puts both of those to shame. And then on each planet that she can see, there's notes and there's dates, but she doesn't understand these dates because they don't match their dates, which use like something about Veneer era and something like before Veneers and after Veneers or something. These use AE. No idea what that means, but she can tell obviously by the years. Like it starts out, some of the planets are like 47 AE all the way to like 17,000 AE. So this is a long time. And as she's reading, she's like, holy crap, these are places the Asteri have been. And some of them are like, hey, these people were not very good. We were there for only like 2 years. Boom, boom. And then some of them are like conquered this year. And then some of them are conquered this year, but then like 4 years later kicked out. They didn't like us, left. And it's just a mixture of all these things about some planets that they just like sucked dry, some they conquered, kicked out, some they didn't even conquer and got kicked out, etc. And it's lists and lists and lists of planets. And then she sees the one from Midgard, and that's the one that's like 17,000 whatever AE. They found this planet and it's fantastic. Like the natural people there are not lame, but they're like, we opened portals, and the planets that had the best food for us basically but kicked us out a while ago didn't recognize us as we opened these portals and welcomed them with open arms, and they came in. And then she's like, oh my gosh, literally we're a farm. They're farming us. They brought us in, and then they've just been feeding off of us for 15,000 years. And then also right before that, she finds the one for Hell, and it was like, this is a dark place, dark and cold, not great for us. They did not take well to us. They kicked us out. So then Bryce is like, oh my gosh, Apollyon was telling the truth. Adis was telling the truth. They don't want us. They're trying to fight the Asteri. They kicked them off their own planet, and now they're trying to help us. And they've been trying this whole time to help us to kick them off of our planet. So these are some crazy stuff happening. And then we go over to Cormac and Therian. They make it in to the place, the little lab place. Pippa is there because they had been dropping hints that they were going to try to get there before the rebels, and the rebels fell for the bait, okay? Pippa and now Cormac are fighting, and then in this moment, Therian realizes, oh, Cormac never intended to leave here alive. Because Cormac fully is like taking on Pippa, and there's like some mech suits coming alive that are coming to fight them, whatever. And he's like, run. Therian, run, get out of here. And Therian's like, aye sir, because Cormac's got that look that he's like full on about to kamikaze. He's no longer long for this world. And then he erupts into a burst of flame, and Therion is just booking it all the way as far as he possibly can from this place. Also to the ocean, because he's got probably like 3 hours left before he needs to be in the water. So both of those not great. So he's just fully booking it. Also great timing though, because he can see the Asteri, like they blow up the whole lab. Well, Cormac blows up the whole lab. And he can see the Asteri as he's running. 5 of them are showing up. And they're coming to like blast, whatever. So that happens. Then we come back to Bryce, who's freaking out, and she's like, well, if all these planets are here, surely the Asteri's home planet must be here. So she's looking through the files, whatever, and then as if reading her thoughts, the intercom turns on and is like, you won't find it, because even we have forgotten where we originally came from. Bryce, mortified, because it's none other than the Bright Hand's voice, Rigelus. Rigelus is there speaking to her, and she's like, oh my gosh, he knows we're here, this is not great. And so then he starts monologuing this whole thing, basically about, he's like, this was so easy getting you here. Literally, it was easy. I've had Mordok telling me where you guys were going. Around the city this entire time, he's been going behind Hind's back the whole time, telling me exactly. He knew exactly all your sense, and he knew exactly where you were doing, what you were doing. So now I had to convince the other Asteri to bid their time. And like, I knew Cormac was a rebel this whole time, but I wanted to see, because usually somebody high up like that would bring in more people. And who did he bring but you guys? And then he also brags, he's like, nobody even suspected it was me when you all let Adis into your apartment and then let the prince follow me through your wards. And then Bryce is like, of course it wasn't a prince of hell that broke through the wards of our apartment. It was a literal Asteri. It was literally Rigelus. So that day that Ethan was sitting there being like, your cat's nice, and she's like, that's not a cat. She's 50% correct, because it wasn't a cat, but it wasn't Adis either. It was Rigelus pretending to be Adis, and he let Cormac in. He literally had been behind this all from the start. Not only that, he also knew what Danica was up to, and Sophie was up to. And he's like, yeah, I know that Sophie like broke in, but then one of our mystics definitely like got it out of somebody, and so we knew about it, so that's why we had to go hunt her down too, and we got her. And he's like, and that's why I had to have Danica killed. And Bryce is like, Micah killed Danica. And then he's like, psh, you think Micah's like smart enough for this? He's like, I'm the one that planted that seed in Micah's head, because yeah. So he's like, so that got rid of that. And then nobody looked twice over at us. And so Bryce's head's reeling, because he's just monologuing, going about all these things that he's like, I'm just so smart. You all fell for this trap, and now I have you all here. And then he's also like talking about these planets. He explains that the thing Danica found out was that the shifters, all the shifters, they're all Fae. And Bryce is like, what do you mean they're Fae? And he's like, well, they're from a different world than you, but they're all Fae. And she's like, they don't have pointed ears. And he's like, well, yeah, that was really easy to breed out of them in like a couple generations, like so easy you won't believe. So it turns out every single shifter and the Mer all came from the same planet, and they were all Fae. And then her, the current Fae, all of them came from another planet, all Fae still. And so he's like, the thing is, we just separated you, and then constantly, you know, created these divisions among you, because if you both knew you were Fae, that's way too easy to unite and rise against us. But if you're like going at each other, distracts from us, and it's great. And so then Bryce is like, this is absolutely insane, mind-boggling insane. This is a lot of information to take in. So then he also is the one that's like, oh yeah, I totally sent those Reapers after you as well. Totally me, trying to get you to use your powers, because we want to be able to open a portal. Like, all of our Asteri, we don't know if there's anybody out there left, because there were more than 7 of us, /6 of us now. He's like, there used to be more of us out there. But unfortunately, stupid Peleus or Thea or whoever, they closed the portal before he was ready for them to close the portal, whatever. So he's like very upset about that, because he's like, whatever planet you Fae came from, Bryce, your ancestors, really pissed at them because they closed that portal and then they killed all of our people there. And so like, we don't know how many of us are left out there, and so we need you to open a portal for us so we can go back there and like, just, I don't know, take care of them. So he's like, we don't really care about hell, if we're being honest here. He's like, I don't care about them. They're low on my priority list. I want to get back to the original planet from where you guys came from. So Bryce is like, never! And then she teleports herself back to the hallway where she's supposed to be Rune and Hunt. But unfortunately, Rune, really anxious, he's really worried about Day. And then he just peaced out and was like, I'm gonna go to the dungeons. Leave if I don't come back in 10 minutes. And Hunt's like, that's not the plan. And he's like, I don't care, I'm getting Day. So he started his way to the dungeons, but didn't even make it there because Mordok steps out and finds him and then grabs him. And he's like, I knew you'd lead me to interesting places since I scented you that day in the alley. And then Rune's like, well, frick, turns out he did know it was me. Darn bloodhound sense. So then when Bryce teleports back to this hallway, she gets a split second to see Hunt there, warning in his eyes as he's shackled with Gorgon shackles. But only gets a split second to see that because then she's now shackled and the Harpy's there shackling her. So now she can't teleport. He can't use his lightning, and then the Harpy's all like, ha ha ha, this is so easy. I don't know, being stupid and being evil. They're all led down to the dungeons, all three of them together. They're thrown into the same cell, locked up. The Harpy's like, I want to have my fun before she gets here. She implying the Hind, because she's the master torturer, spybreaker, etc. But the Harpy wants to have her fun. So she's like, tells Mordok, she's like, leave, I'm gonna have my fun first. So then Hunt's like trying to goad her to go after him so that she spares Bryce and Rune pretty much like the longest, right? But then Harpy's not really falling for it, so she goes over to Rune first, and then she like takes her knife, kind of puts it to his cheek, and then puts it to his other cheek, and then she's about to slice his throat, and Bryce is screaming to be like, I'm gonna kill you, don't leave, like don't even touch him, absolutely not. And then Harpy's like, this sounds sweet music to my ears, and then all of a sudden, next thing Rune knows, she's been tackled to the floor, and he smells a scent that he's like, why do I know this scent? And why is there an undercurrent of my scent mixed in? And then looks, and who should have tackled the Harpy but the Hind herself? And he looks at her and is like, Day? And then she just turns, and in a voice he's never heard the Hind say, a nice, soft, beautiful voice, is just like, night? And then he's like, ah! Mortified, absolutely shooketh to the core, not in a good way, totally mortified that the Hind is Day. Absolutely can't believe what he's seeing. And the Hind and the Harpy are now tussling on the floor. Mordok, mind you, he's gone. Just these two fighting. The Harpy's like, oh, you're gonna die, you rat, how long have you turned, whatever. And she's like, it does not matter, because you're about to die. And then she ends up killing the Harpy with a little bit of help from Rune when she like forced the Harpy closer, and then he grabbed her, and then yeah. Harpy dead. Beheaded, no healing for her, she gonzo, lying dead on the floor. Bryce and Hunt also shooketh, especially Hunt, who also has known her for so long, and he's like, what is happening with all of these people turning out to be good? I don't know if I could take more of this, okay? But then she explains, oh, also, Rune's like, you killed Sophie, you can't be Day, don't even talk to me. And she's like, no, I didn't kill Sophie. They didn't rescue her in time. And they're like, what do you mean? Please explain, ma'am. What do you mean? She's like, pulls out more of those glowing stones. And she's like, these are rescue beacons. Literally beacons to the Ocean Queen. And I dropped one for Sophie, and they got there too late. And I dropped one for you. And so now Rune and Bryce are like, and Hunt, all of them are like, oh my gosh, she's the one that saved us that day from Ophion, from herself. She literally saved us in the ocean. She's the one. It wasn't Bryce's light that called the Ocean Queen's people. It was her beacon. She dropped the beacon for them. So now they're like, their brains are malfunctioning because they're like, I physically can't comprehend. These two things they're not meshing. Rune, totally livid. He's not comprehending this in the right way at all, okay? Then unfortunately they hear some footsteps coming down slowly. Before they can even figure out who it is, the Hind immediately is like, Pollux is coming. And then she's like, quickly, like, we gotta obviously make this look better because the Harpy's down the ground. And she unlocked Bryce and Hunt and Rune. She unlocked them. So then Bryce is like, well, I'm gonna take probably way too much joy in this. Leaps at the Hind, starts pummeling her on the ground, okay? Hunt and then Rune are like, whoa, what the? And so then they, like, when Pollux and Mordok, when they walk up, they see the two girls on the ground going at each other, and then they see Hunt and Rune shouting like they're about to also get in or like rip them apart or do something. And so then they're like, whoa, cool it, everyone here. They stop it, they lock them all up again. But Hunt notices that the Hind, as she's getting like pulled up, for a brief second just whispers something into Bryce's ear. And then they like, she's back into mean, evil hind mode, and so her voice is back to cold indifference and whatever, and they're like, you scum, we're gonna take you to the throne room, blah blah blah. And so they're like, Rune's like, did I literally just imagine everything that happened? I'm so confused. And so then he can also feel her mentally calling, being like, Night, Night, and he's like, nope, bricking that up, blocking that. And then she's like, Rune, Rune, and she's like banging on his mental door, and he's like, nope, I can't with this right now. But then he sees Pollux like put his hand around behind or do something, and then he's like, so I'm gonna kill him. And he's like, really inconvenient that I'm having contradictory feelings here, where I really want to just kill Pollux, but at the same time I can't even stomach looking at Lydia right now. So it's just mixed feelings going on. Hunt realizes Bryce was given a key from behind so she's actually not locked in. So they're just biding her time. So he's like got that in mind. He's like, okay, good. She will be able to get out at some point. She can teleport somewhere. So he's starting to make this plan. As they're walking to the throne room, Mordok also was talking about, I don't know, whatever he's talking about. And he explains, he's like, you smell funny for an angel. I was like, what the heck does that mean? And he just says, he's just like, you just smell funny for an angel. And then that reminds them, Bryce and Hunt at least, when Apollyon or somebody had like specifically said that Hunt is a really good demon hunter because he was like specifically bred to find their kind. And then they were like, what the F does that mean? I don't know. So then Mordok just also being like, you smell funny for an angel. They're like, okay, that's another weird thing. More on that later, I guess. And then, so they get to the throne room. All the Asteri's thrones are empty, except for Rigilus. He's there because the other 5 went to go deal with the whole Cormac thing. But Rigilus is like, I know. I knew that you guys would come. And it was only a matter of time, so I stayed behind. Also on the wall, above their thrones, is Hunt's wings, Shahar's wings, all of the Fallen's wings, just displayed there, as they have been for the last 200 years, and so it makes Bryce livid, Hunt livid, lots of horrible memories. Bryce also knows, obviously, that he's just charging up on his basically battery, his throne, and so then she, like, briefly explains to the whole group to share her info, that, like, hey, they feed off of first light, second light, but she doesn't get to share all our info yet, but she shares that. Rigilus was like, is this your way of like trying to make sure that the info doesn't die with you? And she's basically like, so what if it is? They continue yapping. Baxian also filtered in now, so Baxian, Pollux, and Lydia are standing in the back, just guarding who knows what. And then you have maybe Mordok's back there too, I don't know. So then basically Rigilus is like, you're gonna open this portal for us, we're gonna kill everybody, blah blah blah, this is great, love this for you guys, but we're gonna get on. He's like, I'll let you say your goodbyes, whatever. So Bryce, still pretending to be shackled, goes to Hunt. They have a moment where he's like, I love you, blah blah, all this stuff. They're saying goodbyes. She's like trying not to cry, or is crying, I don't remember. Either way, she then moves on to Rune, and like before they had left on this mission, Rune was like, hey, by the way, you should be queen. And she was like, that's stupid, I actually don't want to be queen. And he's like, you could be a good queen though. You'd be a good queen, you should do that. And she was like, but you're a crown prince. He's like, I literally do not care. I think you should be fake queen. And Cormac also, before he had teleported everybody to the Eternal City and all that, he also was like, hey, I did catch what Rune was saying to you, and I think that you would be a good queen for what it's worth for like both of our peoples. And then she's like, what? And then they all, you know, went their separate ways. So now we're back here, and Rune, they're verbally saying goodbye, and then mentally he's like, I still, what I said earlier, by the way, I still think you should be queen. Also, the oracle told me that the royal bloodline will end with me, so like, if you take away the prince stuff from me and you become queen, like, maybe that's how that happens. Or I'm shooting blanks, or I'm about to die. Either way, that's what happened. And Bryce is like, this is a lot of info to dump on me right now. I don't want to be a queen. And also, what do you mean that's what the oracle said to you? And then he's like, by the way, I know you're unlocked. And then when she had been saying goodbye, she unlocked Hunt, and then she just unlocked Rune. So he's like, I'd already told Athalar what the signal is, so when you're ready, like, we're ready to go. And she's like, okay, cool. And then he verbally out loud says, long live the queen. And then Hunt and Rune, I think Rune blasts, I don't know, Hunt immediately takes that cue, blasts his power right at Rigilus. Baxian in the back there takes out the other 3, knocks him out, and is like tussling with Pollux, whatever. And then Rune's, I don't know, I think he's probably blasting power too, or doing something. And so Hunt was like torn between, do I blast Bryce so that she can teleport out, or do I distract Rigilus so that she still has time. So he doesn't get to blast her, but he's blasting Regulus, which distracts him enough that she speeds out there. She's running away fast as possible, because down the hall she saw they got a gate, just like the ones back in Crescent City. They got a gate there, and she's like, I'm heading right towards that thing. So she's full sprinting, okay? But not long after she runs out, Regulus chasing her, going full Asteri power, and she's like, real bummer that they do have real power, because this is sketchy AF. So she's sprinting, dodging, weaving. Regulus, he's getting closer to her, and he's so pissed. And he also still wanting her to, you know, make this portal for them, the Asteri, to whatever the original Fae lands are. She doesn't know what that is. So she just knows that Hunt and Rune were like, take the Star Sword, 1, and then 2, go to hell, bring back armies. We need help. Go bring back the armies, go join with Apollyon, Adis, you know, do what you need to, because we're gonna need help. So that's what she's doing. Right as she's about to get to the portal, okay, Hunt snipes, lightning blasts her right in the back, perfect shot, powers her up. She starts creating a little portal thing. Regulus is like, no! And so he's reaching for her, but then she falls back into the portal, gone before Regulus could get there, okay? She's carrying the Star Sword, and then just herself, and then gone. Mind you, Declan is watching all of this on the cameras, by the way. Doing it, not being able to do anything, again, ×2 from the summit when they also could do nothing but watch on the cameras. He's still doing that. So now Regulus, livid. He is like, so you guys are gonna regret that. He then takes Hunt. They're all shackled again. He looks at Hunt. He's like, I don't think we need a witch crown to do this again. And then he touches Hunt's forehead and then uses his own power, not witch ink, his own whatever crazy Asteria power, and then the crown of thorns is back on Hunt, and he's screaming in pain and then blacks out. And then Bryce faintly hears Hunt's screams as she lands on grass, and then it's like, weird, I didn't expect grass in hell. And then she's like she just, you know, went through a crazy event, so a lot of emotions are riding. Can't decide whether those screams of Hunt that she heard as she landed was like real or not. And then she kind of opens her eyes, and she's in like this nice, like quaint area, and there's like houses and a river, and like it's a really beautiful place actually. And she's like, hell is looking a lot better than I thought it would look better. Like, especially if the Asteri described it as like a cold, barren place. Like, this is not cold nor barren. And then behind her, a knife to her throat, and she's like, yep, you got me. What is happening? And the Star Sword is laying on the grass next to her. And then he says something to her, and she's like, I literally have no idea what this dude just said to me. But he has like bat wings. And then he pantomimes like putting a blindfold on. And she's like, well, yeah, that seems about right. So she's like trying to communicate, and she's like, please, is this hell? Take me to Prince Adis. This dude not understanding. So she blindfolds herself, has the sword, or he grabs the sword, or I don't know, whatever. She can feel flying, and she's like, this is weird. It's not the same as like Hunt's wings, but you know, they're being flown somewhere. So she, when she finally gets the blindfold off, sees that she's in a house, and she's like, weird. This is kind of giving like some old-timey fantasy vibes. Like, okay, don't know what's happening, but somewhere Adis has got to show up somewhere. Maybe even Apollyon, but preferably Adis. Then she sees that dude standing there. She's like, okay. Another dude comes in wearing similar like fantasy type leathers, and she's like, okay. And then there's another short woman with short black hair, and she's like, okay. And then there's a woman with like other fighting leather type things on, and she's got like light brown hair, and she's like, please, anybody, Prince Adis, nothing. Everyone's talking in the weird tongue, and she's like, I don't speak hell, I don't know what's happening. And so then they're all speaking to each other, blah blah blah, they're all just staring at each other, and she's like, I don't know what to do. And then her sword's like right there, and then the short black haired one points at the guy that took her and says something about that, and she sees that he's got a dagger, and it looks kind of like the Star Sword, and she's like, interesting. And then she's like, wait a minute, because now both blades are like shining and like doing some stuff, and then she hears one of them say like Gwydion, and she's like, I don't know what that means. And she's like, this is really weird that they look really similar, this knife and this sword. And then finally she's like, my last tactic here, let me speak the old Fey language that I learned when I was 13 to impress my father, and then also kept up because it was helpful for antiquity stuff. So she says in the old Fey language, please, is this hell? Like, where's Prince Adis? Please take me to him. The girl, the short black-haired girl, immediately is like, switches into that language, and she goes, that language hasn't been spoken here in 15,000 years. And then Bryce is like, at least we're getting somewhere. And then in come another girl, similar like light brown hair to the other one, and she's got like tattoos up her arms, paint covering her, and then this dude walks in and she's like, Rune? What? Wait a minute. Rune? No? This is creepy. Dude looks just like Rune except for shorter hair and not covered in the same tats. He's got different tats, and he's got like bat leathery wings, and he also doesn't have like piercings. But his eyes and the shape of his face and the hair color and everything, straight up she's like, is this my brother? What is happening? And so then they like have their own conversation in whatever language, and then she's just like, please, Adis, anybody. And then the short black haired girl's like, I don't know any of these names that you're saying. And then she's like, like, where am I? What is this then? If this is not hell, and there is no Adis here. And then the paint-covered one says something, gets translated through black-haired one, and she's like, what is your name? To which Bryce is like, I am Bryce Quinlan. Then the tall dude, who looks like Rune, he responds and says, hello, Bryce Quinlan. My name is Rhysand. So in case you didn't gather that, the entire time, she landed on Prithian! And she was talking, Azrael grabbed her, and then there was Nesta and Amryn and Cassian and Feyre and Rhysand. Anyway, crazy. So that's where we end off there. Then we get to the epilogue. In the epilogue, it's back at Ethan, of all people, okay? And he's just literally standing at this door outside the stupidest Drowners place, just looking all broody and like, no one gets through this door, blah, blah, blah. I don't know, being annoying. And he does see Amelie pass, but she sees him and then immediately moves by, and he's like, I knew it. They're gonna try to kill this girl. But then he gets a phone call from Flynn, and he's like, what's up? And then Flynn's like, sounds like on the verge of tears, which, wild that this grown Fey man, whom Ethan has gotten to know over quite a last little bit, is now sounding like he's about to cry. And he's like, oh my gosh, what happened? And Flynn's like, you gotta come see this, you need to come home. Like, I don't know how to explain this to you besides like, you need to come watch. And Ethan's like, I can't, I got stuff that I'm doing, like, is Bryce okay? And then he's like, well, last that we saw her on this world, she's okay. And he's like, what does that mean? And he's like, Hunt and Rune were taken into custody. Also Baxian, but for this conversation, they don't care, but Baxian was thrown in prison with them as well. And so then Ethan's like, okay, I'll be there in 15. But he can't just leave the door because he knows that Amelie or Sabine, somebody's gonna come and they're gonna murder this girl, this mystic. So he does the next best thing, breaks in, astronomer not home, he goes to the tub, but instead of like forcefully yanking her out, he just is like, please, my pack needs me, because he had some moment of revelation where he was like, this is my pack, these bros, these Fey males that I live with, they are my pack and they need me. So he's like, please wake up. And she opens her eyes, and then he's like, frick yeah, the end. And thus we finish book 2 of Crescent City. Woo!